Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Drew Donaldson for round two. Drew is CEO at GroHaus. We did an episode together probably a year or two ago, Drew, and we discussed, from what I remember, right, some of your low-ish tickets services that you would offer through the agency, which was quite interesting to me. It was sort of an agency that offered a bunch of services and targeting small businesses. So we're gonna double click on that. I think you acquired Crackle Marketing since last time we spoke. So let's talk briefly about that as well. This podcast is brought to you by podpair.com. If people want to start or monetize their podcast, they can go to podpair.com if they want to make money with AdSense or sponsors or generate leads from podcasts like I do. Drew, welcome to the pod again. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what's been new at GroHaus since last time we spoke.
Well, thanks, Charles. I appreciate you having me on for round two, like you said. So a bit about me. I come from a small town in Pennsylvania. I never really started out wanting to own a marketing agency. It wasn't like a childhood dream of mine, but I always was very entrepreneurial. So I've owned a bunch of businesses on my way up. I got into marketing because I actually was running a production company that was failing. And I couldn't figure out why. We had won all these awards. We had great quality work, but I just could not make money. I just couldn't make money. I couldn't get clients. And I would see all these other, for lack of a better term, low rent production companies that were shooting bar mitzvahs on the weekend, stealing clients that I knew I could produce better work. And I just could not figure out how they were doing it. And I was like, it's got to be the marketing. It's the one thing I'm not good at. I can write great scripts. I can edit videos. I can shoot videos. I got all that under control. I know the quality's there. I don't have any handle on what marketing and sales looks like. So I really became obsessed with marketing and everything from just plowing through everything Russell Brunson has ever said or written to reading 1,000,001 books on marketing. And eventually kind of seeing that, if I was going to really learn this, I needed to work on the inside at one of these inside a marketing department to really learn this hands-on. And so I ended up working on a marketing team at a university as their head of video production, insourced a bunch of video production from an ad agency, won a bunch of awards there. And I think it was kind of during that time that I realized, or maybe even before I took that role, that I was like, I'm not nearly as interested in production as I used to be. I like this, but I also kind of don't. Lugging camera cases around in New York City summer heat is not my favorite thing in the world. And I was doing that every day. And so I saw this as kind of a good leaping point where I could take what I learned here and then shift focus entirely into marketing. And then that was the transition. It took me probably 5 years to fully cycle out of production to where I wasn't touching a camera anymore. And I was just consulting on marketing strategy. But I did that. And after I had a big client for 5 years or so that was paying most of the bills. And after that spun down, I launched GroHaus. And then to your point, Crackle. So I think when we spoke, I might have been with Crackle. Crackle was GroHaus version 2. And so I had started GroHaus. I took on 2 partners. They had already built a similar agency called Crackle. They made me an offer to come run that agency and to put GroHaus kind of on the back burner, or take what I had learned with GroHaus and apply it to their business. So we ran that business for a year together. I think that was the year when we first spoke. And then after about a year, I bought them out of that business and took back sole control of the agency. And so since then, we've really refocused into primarily coach consulting and educational services. So we don't really do much outside of that. We do have some clients for high ticket e-com and some specialty products that will help, as well as in addition to some other random people that we've picked up along the way that we like working with. But really that's our core focus, is what we call knowledge and service-based businesses.
Right. And tell me about the acquisition, the why, and how did it go? Was it a smooth integration, and has it yielded the ROI you hoped it would?
Oh, 100%. It was a beautiful, at the time it was a scary thing, because essentially they blindsided me with a buyout offer. We were about a year into the business together, and they came to me and said, hey, we don't really have an appetite for this business. They came from the big agency world. They were hoping to scale this thing to like $1 million in the first year. It just, for what the cards we were playing, that just was never going to happen. And so they were just like, yeah, I think they lost their appetite. They were just like, yeah, this is going to scale too slowly for us to really make a killing on. So we want out. And so they said, we'd like you to buy us out. I said, yep, we'll do that. That month actually ended up being our best month of all time up until that point, because at that point I realized like, well, I'm kind of building my future here. So I just need to like double down and sell as much product as humanly possible ahead of the sale. And one of the things that had plagued the business was that even though we were making good money, I mean, we scaled to 6 figures in the first 3 months of selling the product of operation. We were still always in the red because we had all this overhead that my partners had brought into the business as best practices, as like, well, you need HubSpot, and well, HubSpot costs $2,000 a month, and you need this content marketing agency, and that was $5,000 a month, and you need this accounting firm, and that was $1,000 a month. And so like all those things really, it's like the death by 1,000 cuts. It's like it really stacks up. And so when when we signed the paperwork, we signed it April 1st. Which is kind of funny, April Fool's Day. I was hoping I was not the one to be the fool in this transaction. But we signed the deal. And then for the first 30 days, I cut everything. I fired every single vendor we had, took us off HubSpot, took us out of the content marketing agency, like really just cleaned house. And within 30 days, we were profitable. And since then, we've tripled the business. So it really was one of those things that like we were handcuffed to these really expensive assets or really expensive services. And as soon as I got rid of those, the business was profitable and could grow. And it was like having the shackles off so you can really take flight.
Like it. So cutting down on expenses. Also, could you make of something better of the assets that were given to you? Like often when you acquire something, some people can make something quite magical with what this business have. I don't know, like email subscribers on day one, while these subscribers have been under marketed, and create a couple of thousands of dollars almost immediately on day one. So what assets of the business have you utilized via the ex-owner that maybe wasn't leveraging its full marketing firepower?
Well, really so there was 2 missed opportunities, I think. The first was that when we first started Crackle together, the idea was to be a low ticket solution for small businesses so that, businesses that couldn't afford an agency had someone to turn to. And then that quickly became like, well, we can't make money just doing these low ticket coaching. We have to have these additional services. And that was fine for a while. And that got us to our first 6 figures. But then it became, well, now we need to charge even more for coaching. And it became this kind of like cat and mouse game where it's like, if we keep raising the prices, people are eventually going to just be like, well, you're just an agency calling yourself a coaching business. You're not really, you're not the low ticket done with you model or like DIY model. But you're also not an agency, and yet I'm paying agency rates and getting this lower ticket service. And so it was this constant struggle with us back and forth of like, what should the offer be and what should it include? And I think the biggest thing I did to spur the growth in the business was I reverse course on all the pricing increases that we had gone through. Like we had made the coaching really unaffordable. I brought it back to the level where we were selling the most, and helped like kind of right the ship in terms of like the lead flow. The other missed opportunity was just we were not doing enough paid media, nearly enough. And the paid media we were focused on was grossly inefficient. So like we had a big focus on pay-per-click when we first launched because that's how we got our first like cadre of clients. And that was forced because this is prior to TikTok. So the only real advertising option was Facebook. And we got banned on Facebook on the launch of our campaign for 6 months. So like, we go to turn the ads on March 1st and the counts gets banned. And so it's like, well, our only other choice is pay-per-click. So we got really reliant on that, but the landing page didn't convert terribly well. Marketing clicks are $8 to $12 a pop. So it's just like, you're just bleeding money. And luckily by the time we had come to an arrangement, I started heavily going into paid media on social. And that was the other opportunity that just blew the doors open. And then all of a sudden we had plenty of clients coming in.
And similar ICP between the two businesses. And also, did you had to onboard people? Was it like a good culture fit?
No, I mean the business really was like it was a goodwill transfer at the end of the day, because it was essentially me, my two business partners, and then a bunch of outside vendors, and my wife, who served as our creative director. So essentially when I took over the business, it was just like, well, we got rid of those two guys, and now it's just me and my wife, and that was it. We only actually started growing the team after that point. So it was only when my wife was about to have our first child that I went and hired my first person, initially as a VA. She eventually grew into the head of operations for the business. Unbelievable hire, like such a lucky hire. I hired her in the parking lot, or I interviewed her rather in the parking lot of the hospital, like 24 hours after my wife had given birth. So like she was just right place, right time, best fit. And so I didn't have any of those cultural issues. The core service model didn't really change that much, besides like kind of going back to the pricing that had been working. And then the next big shift that we made was offering, now that I had a person to help manage the workflow, we started hiring more people on the back end, and we started expanding more into, because one of the things I figured out was that the low ticket coaching model just wasn't sustainable in and of itself. Like it only can get so big before it falls down or it caps out. And so I was not willing to take on 100 clients at a time and give all 100 of them a terrible experience. I was like, if I'm going to do a coaching program, I'm going to keep it small. It's going to be 10% of my take. And I don't care if I only help 10 people. That's fine by me, because the rest of the business will support it. And so that's really has been our trajectory since then, is moving away from low ticket coaching as the primary service and into agency and now enterprise consulting.
Can we double click on the low efficiency of low ticket? Because I've also had that as an insight. My first business was serving realtors, Facebook ads for them, right? $300 a month. And people would charge back this $300 a month, like I'd be 3 months in with them. And then on month 4, after 1 month, they churned. Basically, I would get this chargeback notification because the realtor was like too broke and had to pay for an expense. And I was the young marketing guy. I guess they took advantage of that and left. I think, yeah, generally speaking, people paying low prices for things are pretty much like at the lower scale of business. They're not experienced. They don't have much to give out. So I found that was the main reason why low ticket is not the way to go. And also high ticket, well, you not only do you filter people, but you constantly increase your price. And yeah, at some level in wealth, you don't care about like sending 1,000 or 2 or 10 out to someone. So why was it just a time thing, or also the quality of client? Did you see that faltering with low ticket?
It was both. I mean, it, I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, when you charge more for something, people value it more, right? Like if you sign a client for a $10,000 a month contract, you can bet on them being a more engaged client than someone who's only paying you $200 to $300 a month for a similar service, right? And so I think that part of it is just it was attracting people who are going to be problems, who are going to give me a hard time, who are going to ask for the world and not care that they were only paying $300 a month. I'm sorry, my video keeps clipping out and freezing here. I don't know what's going on there, but the real issue that we ran into was we wanted to be able to provide the quality of service that I knew we were capable of providing, and the quality of experience and the quality of results. And it's just impossible to do that on low ticket. So it's like, it doesn't really matter the quality of the people that you attract. You could attract the best people in the world with low ticket, but you're still never going to be able to serve them fully and completely without sticking your hand out every 4 weeks and saying, hey, I need a little bit more. I need a little bit more. I need a little bit more. And like, while that is acceptable in a funnel structure where you have upsells, I always felt very icky about coming back to a client who had signed up for a $400 a month program a month into it and saying, I kind of need like an extra $200 a month to do that for you. It just
Yeah.
felt like a bait and switch. And so I think it's really what it came down to was I knew our services were worth it. I knew people would pay for it. And I wanted to make sure the quality of the work we were putting out there was on par with what I knew we were capable of, not the discount Walmart version of what we could do, just to make sure that we got that person that could only spend $300 versus $500.
Yeah, there's always that in the back of your mind when you're charging so few dollars for someone and you're like, "Oh, am I really working for that person for 300?" Then there's this other phenomena that usually people that start out that don't have much money and buy low ticket products, they haven't outsourced much. Some of them don't even need to outsource at that point. So if say you're one of their first outsourcing experience, they're going to be pretty bad managers, right? They're going to constantly ask for things and put pressure on you. So, yeah, just not a good fit, generally speaking. Now, you mentioned Brunson, and I'm still very bullish on the value offering side of things. So, let's say I still have low ticket products, right? But they're very low service. So, let's say $100 list. My clients start with that. They buy that, then they're like, oh, okay, now that I have all these emails, how do I actually write an email? What platform do I use? How do I get in the mailbox, right? And then that's when they probably buy my course. Then after the course, they realize that they actually need someone to do that because they hate writing cold emails, and they hire me at 2.5 or 2.5K per month. Do you still have some of that value ladder in which you start with low ticket product to hook them up, or even a free product, a newsletter, for example, and then you pitch them up and up and up the scale? Is that one of your principles still?
Not really. I'll be totally transparent there. Like the maybe at the coaching side, like we're about to relaunch the coaching business in the beginning of next year, and so maybe there is going to be some of that. I've thought about doing kind of a workshop funnel with like a $27 workshop or something like that that I know is a pretty good SLO. But the reality is like the way I segment my market, the coaching business is for people that are just getting started or who have failed to launch. The agency services that we provide, it's a very tailored suite of like five kind that you're buying into. And if you're buying into one of those, you're spending a few $1,000s with us upfront to initiate that package. And I'm not really interested in working with anyone that can't afford that, because the reality is the work that goes into those packages justifies what I'm charging it. I'm not charging exorbitant rates just to charge exorbitant rates. And then at the enterprise level, like these are fractional CMO, like large engagements with enterprises with a marketing back end tied to it. The chance that someone is going to go from my coaching business and then upsell into my agency and then upsell into enterprise, it's just so low because the gaps between those are so wide that it's easier for me to just segment my audience by marketing and say, okay, for those coaching people, yeah, I'm going to give you a $27 and be done with it, or I'm gonna give you the 27 and then upsell you into a mastermind of 97 and then sell you into my whole coaching program for 3,500 or whatever it is, and then have them go through. Yeah, but that's 10% of my business. Like the rest of my business, really, it revolves on paid media and cold outreach, bringing people in, solving a very specific problem for them, or advising them at a very high level. And there's not. I think the lead magnet play is really not a fantastic play unless you're like someone like yourself, where you have a phenomenal email back end. I mean, I get your emails all the time. You never leave me alone, right? So like, for 2 years I've been getting your emails, Charles. So unless you're someone like you who has that constant drip, drip, drip of staying on mind, staying on top of mind, staying on top of mind, it's just not that big of a, a priority for me. The other piece of the puzzle is like I've found the people that say yes the quickest tend to be the best clients for me, because they're the ones that are really committed to the change we're trying to bring to their business. Now, obviously, with like enterprise, that buying cycle is not a 24-hour, like, okay, we get on the call, we start today. But for agency, like I look to close people on the second call maximum. I'm not looking to like drag this process out. If you need a third and fourth and a fifth follow up and you need me to hunt you on email for 6 years, you're just not going to be a good client, because whatever I said in those initial 2 calls, if that wasn't enough to convince you that to hire, then there's nothing else I can say. And so I've just always kind of felt it's like no follow-up doctrine of like, I will follow up until, that second call. And if you don't show up for that second call, or you're still hemming and hawing, I'm kind of like, here's my information. When you're ready to go, tell me, I'll send you an invoice and we'll get started, and then move on to the next person. Cause I know that the next person on the call will be ready to go, and they will have their credit card ready or their bank account ready, and like be ready to pay.
Right. Yeah. Some devil's advocate to that. I'm not about pressure closing, right? I tried that in my initial days, and that got me more money, but I think that got me more backlash as well, ethically speaking, to just like close people to the checkout cart. So I'm not about that, but I'm about providing free value and, yeah, staying top of mind to people. But yeah, I do agree with you that if you don't close like on second call, typically speaking, you might even identify me as an annoying uh, person that always sends you newsletter, and it's like, the brain will automatically discard it even if it's not conscious, right? So, but I will tell you, for example, that I had people I did the pods with like 2 years ago, and they converted. I think it's quite important nowadays to follow up in this economy. Sell cycles are longer, close rates are lower nowadays, so you really need to have an edge. And I think most humans, they just forget, right? Like they have so many things to do, especially founders and CEOs, and they just need a little nudge. And just for the sake of writing, right? Like just writing something creates neuron cells, you get brighter. So, but yeah, I definitely agree. I talked about these. The worst is probably when I get like someone fort calls, and they're still not closing. They're still undecisive, or yeah, worse, people that I'm getting to the final stage. I actually start the campaigns, and like last minute, they're like, no. I need accountability, right? I need people
Yeah.
with guts that are willing to pull the trigger and not scared, basically, because scared brings doubt, and it actually attracts like the very result you don't want to get. So, yeah, sort of in agreement with you. You said cold outreach. So, what kind of cold outreach do you do? LinkedIn outreach, cold email? What tools do you use? What ICP do you target generally, and what's your offer?
So the right now we're actually spinning up a new cold email campaign. We use Instantly, and we tie that into High Level, and there's some other tools in that stack. I'm actually working with someone to set that up. That is one of the nice things about not being alone in this business anymore, is I have people to do stuff now. Like it's amazing as you grow how little you touch on the day to day, and still like I still get to wake up and say I own an agency, even though like so much of my time is more dedicated to the more strategy and client service work, and not the like the inner workings. That said, for in terms of the stack on LinkedIn, we use Closely right now, which has been pretty good. And I mean, the process has, I mean, I used to do like one-on-one cold outreach way back in the day before we did this. And, it's a long-term play. And I was just explaining this to a client. It's like, you can't go into cold email thinking, or cold LinkedIn, and expect like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm going to book 100 calls a day. It's like, no. But I just had a client that I, was looking for, he's a financial consultant, and his low ticket offer is bookkeeping. And so he gets them in at bookkeeping, and then he upsells them into consulting, which is I'd not seen that before as a trajectory,
That's
but
good.
he's proved it out. And so he was looking for ways to build that. And I was like, well, you should just do cold outreach on LinkedIn. It's dirt cheap. It's going to cost you $100 a month for Sales Navigator. Might cost you a little bit of extra money if you get an automation, or you could just do it manually. Do your 100 outreaches a day, and you'll book calls. And he came on today after only doing a week, and he's booked 3 sales calls. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, it works. Like the stuff works. You just have to be willing to actually do it. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to cold, and I know I was this way for a long time, just didn't do it. It was one of those things that, oh, well, it's easier to get them this way, or it's easier to run an ad or something like that. And it is. Like, I would much rather go and run an ad, and we're launching ads this week, than do any kind of the cold outreach. Like if I didn't have help on that, if I didn't have tools and automations, that'd be a nightmare to set up and manage. But it does net results, and it does net results at a cheaper rate. Like, if he can book, like I was joking with him. I was like, right now you have a lower cost per acquisition or cost per lead than I do. Because like I'm paying $1,500 a month for ads. You're paying $97 a month for LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You've gotten, what I probably, $300 worth of leads in the time you've been running the case, the program for on LinkedIn. So it's just one of those things that it will work. You just have to put in the effort.
Yeah, and I mean, LinkedIn Sales Nav is still very much a low-hanging fruit, and it works pretty much all the time. I'm not sure why people are complicated that. Just the manual follow-up, which is quite a pain, right? Like just going on LinkedIn and connecting with 25 people and writing something smart, which is an exercise you absolutely need to do. Even if you want to automate your LinkedIn campaign, you need to go on LinkedIn, check people's faces, and try to write something smart, and do that for at least like a month before you can automate these campaigns and see what works. So yeah, it works super well. Like you said, it's $100. I'd also advise Apollo for that price, right? Apollo's $100 with SendGrid, 120. Your 5 mailbox, 130 per month. So cheap, and the results are quite amazing. Now, what are your business goals for the remainder of this year? There's like 3 or 4 months left to the year. So what do you want to accomplish by then?
Well, I think if we can, I think we're on track, and we count our years because we bought the business in April. So our year isn't technically over until next April. So like, it's kind of only looking at like 2/3 of a year by the time the year ends for everyone else. I would say the biggest to-do items for me are, really rebuilding the coaching program. That was something that it was one of those things that like I had it for so long and I just didn't know what to do with it. And that's really why I stopped selling it. And I had people in it that were happy, that were in there for months and months and months and months and months. And every once in a while I would pick up a new edition, but I didn't really know what to do with it. I just kind of felt like I had hit this mental roadblock of what I wanted from it and what I wanted to provide inside of it. And so I just kind of kept course on what it was and didn't really try to grow it. And so spending the next 4 months really rebuilding that program. And then on the flip side, really building out our funnel for enterprise clients, because that is the other side of the business that we're really getting deeper and deeper into as we've started recruiting more bigger name clients that, people would recognize, which goes back to my early days as a consultant when I had a pretty much every mutual fund company in the world as clients when I was working in those consulting days. So, I mean, there's it's kind of like around the world in 80 days a bit, because I started up in high finance, and then I went all the way back to small business, and now I'm kind of working my way back up to more enterprise solutions.
Don't you think there are still opportunities in high finance?
I mean, I'm not going back into high finance in particular. I don't like. One of the, like, when you said the real estate thing, I kind of had to laugh, because like I have a blacklist of like industries that I just do not want to work with, and real estate is one of them, just because it is too complicated and too challenging a marketplace. And I just know that I would rather save that bandwidth for a client that I know we can make successful, rather than take on a real estate person who is like, this could be hit or miss. This could either work really well or it could not work at all for you. So like, I have a list of those. A lot of like financial planners, financial analysts, wealth managers, those kind of folks, I'm not terribly interested in working with. CFOs, like outsourced CFOs, financial consultants that work on a B2B level, I work with. But I don't think I'll ever go back to necessarily like high finance, because most of those people, when you're selling mutual funds or you're selling benefits packages, the compliance that you have to go through is absolutely nightmarish. And I mean, I just can't imagine having the patience to help one of them grow a marketing program and getting my wrist slapped 3 times a week from, some lawyer who just wants to suck the fun out of everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Now, rebuilding the coaching program, will you use Claude or ChatGPT as a brainstorming partner to really builds the best product there is? Like, how will you build a coaching program that's different and that will provide the most value to your clients?
So I'm actually going about this in kind of an interesting way. I'm reverse engineering it based on the roadblocks I know people hit. So I had this concept like a year ago. This is my first attempt to kind of rebuild the coaching program, to marry coaching and agency work. And so the idea was is that you're going to pay more per month, but you're going to get this back end of services that is equivalent to like a limited marketing agency. So there was like a specific set of services we were going to deliver as part of that coaching arrangement, delivered at particular intervals. The problem I ended up having with it was that the pricing wasn't, it didn't make sense. Like the amount of time it was taking and the outflows didn't match the inflows. But I really liked that idea because what we were able to do is we were able to shortcut a lot of people's journeys. So like, for example, I say, all right, so we're going to run a paid media campaign. That's your next step. And they go, I don't know how to do that. And I go, okay, well, that's no problem. I can teach you how to do that. You just have to set up the Facebook account. Oh, I don't know how to do that. So one of the things I did during that period was I hired a person with technical expertise. He actually used to do technology support for Oracle. And so I brought him in and I said, you are now the tech lead for all of the clients. So anytime they need a Facebook account set up or GHL set up or any technical issue that pops up that is preventing them from moving forward, like you're the dude. You're going to jump in and fix it. And he is arguably probably one of my best hires in the last year, because he just was able to remove so many roadblocks from clients that kept them moving down the path and reduce the amount of time I would then have to spend explaining these things. And so once I saw that and I saw the power of like, okay, it's not about what I'm teaching because they can go anywhere and find the teaching stuff. Like that part is kind of irrelevant. It's more about what are the things that they need to know to remove the roadblocks and what is the stick I can give them that gives them enough leverage to move the whatever obstacles are in their way. And so the way I've looked at this is like, obviously with ChatGPT and all of this, and I didn't have any of this when we first started the coaching business. So this is kind of like a new avenue of that stick for leverage. Is like we're building bots that solve specific challenges in the copywriting arena that are holding people back from being successful. And so it's like if I can give them a bot and then explain to them the principles behind what that bot is generating and then just let them fill in the details, use the bot, get the output, and then take action on it, then they can then move through the process. And so I'm kind of looking at it, instead of like, well, what am I going to teach? And then what's the support I'm going to give them? I'm looking at what are all the support points that they're going to need to be successful? What are all the things that I shouldn't expect them to naturally be good at, like copywriting, for example? And how can I create a program that walks them through step by step? Here's the things you need to do. This is the small amount you need to know that's like super critical. And then here are the tools that you're going to need and the support resources to get you through that process. And so it's still has that coaching element because there still is teaching, there's still coaching sessions, just like a traditional coaching program. But it's built in the inverse. Instead of me saying, well, this is my curriculum of what you're going to learn, I'm saying, well, this is the goal you want to get to. Now let's go back and look at all the pitfalls you're going to fall into, and let's build bridges before you ever get there. And so every time they come to a next stage in the program, there's already a tool and a support structure waiting for them. So they don't have to, there's never that moment. And I know a lot of people have this in coaching programs where people just get stuck. And when they get stuck, they give up. And then you get the cancellation of like, oh, sorry, I don't think this is the right one for me. I needed more help. I needed more one-on-one and what have you. So that's been my kind of philosophy building backwards. And yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is a big part of that and the tools we create. And I'm certainly using it to help organize my ideas in terms of like the correct order, because you can do these in a lot of different orders, but there is an optimal order. So kind of putting that data through and seeing what its perception of that is and which task should we tackle first has been really helpful.
What about a coaching product in which you don't meet with the clients, but you send them reports and they have some kind of custom dashboard?
Yeah, I that was actually the original idea behind Crackle. So before I came on, the two other owners had this idea that it would be very hands off and that it would be this course program, and then you would meet with a coach, I think it was once a month, to review your analytics and to review your progress through the coursework that they were building out. And I don't know, I got really bad feedback on that initially. It was kind of this thing that people were like, well, no, the whole reason I want a coach is because I want the one-on-one accountability, which I think is the big difference between coaching and consulting. The more I think about it, is like you hire a consultant to come in and analyze something, prepare a report, tell you what you need to do, but they're not going to hold you accountable to doing it, because that's not what you're hiring them to do. You're just hiring them to solve a problem for you. Once they solve it, they go on their merry way, or they go on to the next problem that they need to solve. But with a coach, you're really paying more for someone to hold you accountable and like help you, like hold your hand through some of these roadblocks. So if you take that human element out and you're not meeting with clients at all, whether it be in group session or one-on-one or what have you, then I think you really lose that. I think there's one of the interesting things I hired a, I don't know if you're sponsored by them, or if you have to edit this out, edit it out. But it's a company called Trainwell. It used to be called Copilot. And I was trying to figure out I had a home gym. And I was trying to figure out like the best routine, the best program to use all of the equipment in this limited space I had and everything. So I hired this company, and I found it really like a disappointing experience, because I found myself doing most of the programming myself and then taking it to the coach, and he's just like, yeah, man, looks good. I was like, no, I want you to tell me what's wrong with it. And so I ended up discontinuing that program. And then I found this like random AI personal trainer app online that was just, clearly like ChatGPT with a trainer prompt. And it gave me the best workout like advice of anything I ever got. And I was like,
Yep.
So there is something to be said about having like a ChatGPT coach for that kind of thing, where it's like, I need an answer to this. Here's all the variables. What do I do? And it's just a very like transactional answer. But I think most people, when they think of coaches, they're looking for someone to hold them accountable, cheer them on, hold their hand, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. And also, I would even revert the question to us, right? Like, as coaches, is ChatGPT giving better advice than us? And for anyone listening, upload your client's data in ChatGPT and ask it question. Most of your clients won't use ChatGPT, but the insight here is if you can use it yourself to take notes during meetings, if you're going to do coaching the classical way, and feed it data and then ask it questions off that, that's where you can get to deep technical insights, in my opinion, nowadays. Drew, thank you so much for showing up today. Where can people find out more about you?
So you can visit us at GroHaus.org. We are actually on the eve of a new website launch. So if you check today, it's actually reflects the old coaching program. If you check back on Labor Day, it will be the brand new agency page that we have been working all summer on. So just GroHaus.org, GroHaus.org. And then you can find me all over social media. LinkedIn and TikTok tend to be where I'm most active.